like, I need to look very responsible. I'm doing a parenting video, and then I ended up wearing this today. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Britt Space. So on this episode, I am chatting parenting. Let me just start this video off by saying I am going to share tips, tricks, things that have worked, but please know this video is not from a place of someone who is an expert. I am not an expert. I make a lot of parenting mistakes daily, and I am still just trying to figure it out. Even though I'm 7 years into parenting, I still don't really know 90% of the time. So with that said, let me give you some parenting advice. Okay, so on the last sit down video I did, a lot of people requested a parenting, co-parenting, single parenting vibe sort of a video, and so of course I got on Instagram because you guys always help me out with questions, and instead of just getting on here and just like rambling for 20 minutes, I was like, let me see what the people want to know. So I asked you guys to leave any of your parenting questions, and you guys left some really good ones. So I'm just going to go through the list and answer those. I'm a mother of 4. How do you balance your days effectively between work, kids, and me time? Like a crazy person. No, but that's a very valid question. I think there's some weeks that I do really well in balancing it all, and there's other weeks where I literally am at capacity all week and I'm a grouchy mom and I don't have time for myself. Like I said in my self-care video, I think a lot of it is about being intentional. So instead of waiting till you're at the point where you're ready to just burst because you're so stressed out, try to catch yourself before that. So if that means that your laundry piles up because instead of doing laundry, you take that time for yourself after your kids are in bed, do that. Or if it means getting a sitter, do that. I think just little things throughout the weeks and the months can really add up. So yeah, prioritizing yourself, scheduling, and just knowing that, you know, some weeks you will feel like the best parent in the world because you'll spend a lot of quality time with your kids, and then other weeks you will be focused on work and you will feel great at work, but then you'll feel like, oh, I'm missing out on my kids a little, or I didn't really get self-care in. So I guess my point is it's give and take, and just give yourself grace. Who are your babysitters? Do you have consistent visitation from their father? I'm not giving up my babysitters. Just kidding. Yeah, so the kids do spend several nights a week with Austin. We do co-parent now a lot better now that he is in, well, I keep saying now, but now that he's back in town, because for a while he lived in LA. But he recently moved back to Kansas City, and so now, yeah, the kids do spend equal amount of time with him during the week, so that does make things a lot more doable. Also, the kids' grandparents are so amazing, and so they help me out a lot as well. So with the mix of their dad, grandparents, and my babysitter, I'm usually pretty much covered in that department. Okay, what holidays do you have with the kids? So thankfully, me and Austin have really worked hard to be cool and co-parent well. So we kind of just share the kids for all the holidays, and it does help that everyone is local. Like, my family's here, his family's here, so that helps that we don't really feel like, you know, one of us has to travel with the kids. So we kind of just share them, you know, we'll just talk about each holiday and just say like, hey, what are you doing? I'm doing this. Okay, so, you know, you have them this time. You know, I'm really lucky in that, like I said, everyone's local, and me and Austin just kind of figure it out. What's your advice for fighting siblings? How do you stay calm and not freak out every time they fight? I don't stay calm. I do freak out every time they fight because it's really annoying. There's some days where I have a lot of patience and I have a lot of ideas of how to deal with fighting. And there's other days where I just don't have the patience and I'm just like, stop fighting, which doesn't help. But I would just say my one thing when I do have like a day where I have patience and I figure it out, just having each of them go to their room. I know it sounds really basic, but I think just removing each kid and having them play on their own kind of reminds them that having siblings is a privilege, and it's actually a lot more fun to play with someone else than by yourself. So when there's just like chronic fighting where it's just nonstop, I will literally just be like, okay, everyone go play on your own, in your own space, and usually by the end of that they're like begging to play with each other again. They're like, oh, I'm really bored by myself and I want to play with someone. And so then I'm like, okay, then be kind to each other, because it's a privilege to have a sibling to play with. Not everyone has that. So that's my advice. But yeah, it can be so annoying. What is the difference between parenting a girl versus a boy as a single parent? That's a really good question. I don't think it always goes down to like gender, although I do think there is something to be said about gender. Not to make that a huge thing because all kids are different, but I will say the difference between Audrey, like as a girl, and her brothers, like it is a gender thing sometimes where it's like it's just a different world. Not bad, but just different. But for me, I kind of see it as personality versus gender. Audrey, Kylan, and Maddox are all very different personalities. So I think it's just learning how to juggle each personality. Kylan is more of an introvert. He could be extroverted, but at the end of the day, he's an introvert. Audrey is definitely an extrovert. And Maddox, I don't know, right now he's still kind of in between because, you know, he's only 4. So I think the hardest part, to answer your question, with just like dealing with that dynamic and being a single parent is figuring out how to handle all 3 of them when they're all coming at me. There are times where it is kind of overwhelming, like not in a bad way, but like, you know, Audrey will be telling me one thing and then Kylan's like, oh look, I need attention, and then Maddox is like getting into something and I'm just like, I can't handle it. So I think just trying to focus on each child and telling the other kid, hey, give me a second, I'm talking to your sister, or, you know, give me a second, I'm talking to your brother. That helps a lot. Do you feel guilty when you go on dates instead of hanging with your kids? I do. I don't, because normally when I'm on dates or hanging out with my boyfriend, it's usually when they're with their dad or with grandparents or a babysitter or something like that. So it's time that they would already have, like, be away. So I don't feel necessarily like guilty, like I'm like missing out on time to hang with them to hang with someone else. But I will say just making time for everything, work, kids, dating, like it can be very, very overwhelming, and there are definitely weeks where I juggle that better than other weeks. Co-parenting with an immature narcissistic person. Co-parenting in general. Is that a question? I mean, yeah, that can be difficult. I think always just being focused on the kids can really help. Really doing your best to not make any of the issues or any of the conversation about you and your ex, but only you and your kids and your ex and your kids. Anything that has to do with your kids. And this is something that my therapist told me. She was like, you know, sometimes things can get convoluted when you start pulling issues in with your ex, or like, you know, issues you have with them versus keeping it about the kids. If you always keep the focus on your kids, it's really hard to get into like a lot of touchy areas if you're just like, hey, let's talk about the kids. Okay, hey, let's figure this out. But I think at the end of the day, it's just knowing how to be the bigger person, which can be really hard. Especially, I mean, according to this question, they're dealing with like an immature narcissistic person. Like that can be very difficult. But holding your ground, keeping your ground, also being really clear about boundaries and sticking to it is very helpful. Tips for going from 1 to 2 kids. Good luck! No, I'm just kidding. It really depends on the age gap. Going from 1 to 2 kids for me was a little tricky because Audrey and Kai are only 17 months apart. So whenever I got pregnant with Kylan, Audrey was still little. I was actually still breastfeeding her, so it was a little bit difficult. But I would just say going from 1 to 2 kids is totally doable. You just have to have a game plan. So one really big tip I would give you is plan for when so if you already have an older child, depending on how old they are, I don't know, this tip can work for anything. Plan specific toys and tubs for when you're nursing your second child or when you're busy with the second child, because I will say the biggest thing with going from 1 to 2 is adjusting your child, your only child, from being the only one to having a sibling. Whether they're little or older or whatever, it's still an adjustment. So letting them know they're still important and that they're still part of your life and that you're going to have a new routine, and making them part of the new routine with their sibling is really helpful. And then like back to the toy thing, what I would do is I wouldn't go out and buy a ton of new toys, but I would buy a few things that that Audrey hadn't seen before, and I would keep them in this special little toy bin, and she could only have it when I was nursing Kylan or like kind of involved with like maybe putting him down for a nap or something like that, so that she was like entertained and also felt kind of special, like, oh, this time with brother is like cool for me too. Like it's not like mommy's just like ignoring me, but I get to be doing something fun too. Just knowing that it will get easier. When you go from 1 to 2 children, honestly, I felt like going from 2 to 3 was harder than going from 1 to 2, but that's neither here nor there. I think just planning and knowing that it's going to be a little crazy in the beginning. It just is. It's gonna be a little bananas. You're gonna feel like your brain is ready to explode, but it'll get easier and you'll get a routine down. And all will be okay. All the potty training tips. Okay, I got a lot of potty training questions. Potty training, all the potty training tips. Potty trained my son with no problem, but my daughter's having a hard time. Any advice? I wonder if I should do a separate potty training video, because I have a lot to say about potty training. But let me just do like the quick version. So potty training, let me just say a prayer for you right now. Okay, but no, really. Potty training is the boot camp of parenting, because you are like, okay, I got this, and then when you start day one, you're just like, is this what happens? Is this that? My top tips of potty training. Tip number 1: please make sure your child is ready. This is probably the biggest mistake I see parents make. I think that actually, no, I didn't make that, only because I saw so many other people do it that I was determined not to. But I see a lot of people start too young. Like, in their mind, they're like, Bonnie's best friend's mom potty trained him when he was 18 months, so I'm going to do that. Or, you know, my best friend's daughter was 2 when she potty trained, so I'm going to do that. And it's like, yes, we have these standards and these, like, milestones, but is that what it's called, a milestone? Focus on your kid and know that your kid is not behind. Wait till they're ready. I remember my pediatrician telling me, you're not potty training yourself, you're potty training your child. So you are putting more work into the potty training than your child is, and you have more interest in it than they do, then you need to wait till they're ready. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because, for example, those of you who've watched the vlogs for a long time, you remember when I was about to potty train Kylan, and he kept saying, I don't want underwears. No, I don't want to wear underwears. Like, I'm pretty sure if I wouldn't have just decided to potty train him, the child would have never decided. So, you know, obviously use your best judgment. You can wait until they're ready, but if they're like never ready, then you just have to make the jump. Signs of readiness are when they're able to tell you when they're using the bathroom. If you see them hiding to poop, things like that, that usually is like, you know, they know that they're going and they want privacy. All of my kids did that, and that's where I was like, it's time to potty train you. If you're like hiding to poop and then you like come tell me that you pooped in your diaper, you're ready. Just general interest. A lot of times younger siblings might be easier because they see their older sibling going and they want to go. Take advantage of that. Maybe don't officially start, but just get in the habit of, you know, hey, sister's going potty. If you're interested, you can sit on the potty too. I do the 3-day method, and I always potty train in summer. This is just how I do it. Everyone does it differently, but this is gonna sound kind of animalistic and barbaric, but honestly, I usually do the summer so that we can just be in the backyard without pants and with a potty seat outside, a little potty chair, and like, I know it sounds really barbaric and gross, but like that's literally, I've had the most success doing it that way. There's a million potty training methods, okay? So next tip would be pick your method and stick to it. I did the 3-day method where you just stay home for 3 days straight and you just take their diaper off and they just run around naked, and you just shove apple juice in their face and make them drink a ton so that they get a lot of practice. That's the method I use. I don't actually know if that's official method. That's just what I do. I take everything off because a lot of times if you decide to potty train and then you immediately put underwear on your kid, it's gonna just feel a lot like a diaper and they will just pee in it. So I don't ever do underwear the first couple days of potty training. I literally just have them run around with no pants on, nothing on, so that they can just feel the air, which sounds weird, but I really feel like it makes a difference to hold off on putting underwear on them. Oh, here's another thing. All the floodgates are open when it comes to potty training and in treats. I am one of those people where I'm like, you can have as much candy, whatever will get you motivated, star chart, whatever motivates you, I am here for it. We will have M&Ms, we will have suckers, we will have all the things, and I have no shame in saying that, because anything that gets them excited about the bathroom, I am here for it. And here's another thing. You will feel ridiculous. You will run around all day saying things like, you went pee, you went poop, yay! And you will feel so dumb by the end of the day that you got so jazzed, but do it because it does help. So when I potty trained Audrey, I will say she was my easiest kid. I don't think it's because she's a girl. I think it's just her personality, but she was literally in 3 days totally potty trained. No accidents, or very few. That's just Adriana. Kylan was more of a we. Okay, so yeah, I don't want to get into this hardcore because I'm like, I don't want to embarrass my kids, and they are at the age where they watch these videos and I don't want them to be embarrassed. But without getting all the details, Kylan and Maddox took a little bit more time. It wasn't exactly just 3 days, but by the third day they were going, and I did feel confident enough to leave the house and stuff like that. So let me know if you want a separate potty training video, because I feel like I have a lot more to say on that. How do you deal with criticism of your parenting style? I think this is one of those questions. It just gets better over time. I think in the beginning, when you're a first-time parent, you're very sensitive to what people say or how people see you, and like, oh my gosh, I remember when I first had Audrey, or no, I was pregnant with Audrey, and I went to this like little farmer's market, and I'm not laughing at people that do cloth diapering. I think it's amazing, but I think it's so funny for me that in my first child, I was like gung-ho on cloth diapering, and I was like all about it, and it just didn't work out for me. I just wasn't ready and wasn't really ready to handle it. It works out for a lot of people, so I'm not knocking it. But I was at this farmer's market looking at cloth diapers, and this older lady walks by, and she's like, oh, you're pregnant, is your first child? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, wow, you're really gonna try to cloth diaper with your first kid? And she just kind of went in, and I was like so offended and so annoyed, and I was like, you know, explaining myself to her, and even after we left, I was so annoyed. She actually was right, because I didn't end up sticking with it. But looking back on it, I'm like, you know, you just have to like let people's opinion brush off. If you know what your goal is and you're doing the best that you cannot listen to every single person, because everyone will have an opinion. It's not always the right opinion, and there's a million different ways to do things with kids and still be successful. So I would say my biggest advice is not letting people's opinions bother you with parenting, but staying focused. How do you edit and film while you stay at home? This is a really good question. Actually, I'm filming a video to show you guys how I do it, but a lot of it is filming here and there, bits throughout the day, and then I do a lot of work at night after the kids go to bed. I also work a lot during the day when they're at school. Introducing a new partner to your ex. When's the right time? Oh, like if you're dating someone, introducing them. I mean, I don't know. I can't really answer that for everybody. I think it just has to feel right. I would say when you know the person that you're dating is going to be in your life, and you're like, hey, this is like a person, then I think it can, you know, be helpful to introduce them. But I think it's different for everybody, and it just has to feel like in the right moment. It has to feel right. How do you keep so calm? I am impulsive and always react immediately, then forget afterwards. Oh, I am not always calm, you guys. I had to apologize to the kids at least 5 or 6 times last week for yelling at them and being really impatient and being what I call a crusty mom. So here's one of my biggest parenting advice of all times. If you get anything out of this video, get this. You will need to apologize to your kids sometimes, if not a lot. And when I say apologize to your kids, I'm not saying, you know, they're teenagers or they're older or they're adults and you apologize. Like, no, your kid, like your 8-year-old that you just yelled at. Apologize. There are times where you will lose your temper and you will be crusty and you will be grumpy. I think that it does a lot more for kids to see adults mess up and be willing to humble themselves enough to apologize than it does to lecture your kids until they're blue in the face about what to do, and then they see you mess up and you don't apologize, you don't say you're sorry, and you just are like, whatever. I think it's a total double standard, and yeah, I'm not here for it. So if you get anything out of this video, I would say the biggest thing to do is to let your kids understand that you are not perfect. You will make mistakes. Parenting is trial and error, and so I tell my kids all the time, and they see it all the time. I'm like, oh, mommy messed up. Oh, mommy, I am so sorry. You know, even Maddox, even he's 4, but I mean, if I'm expecting my kids to be kind and caring, and when they make a mistake, admit to it and apologize and all these things, then I have to be willing to do that too. Oh, how to keep calm. I think what I tell my kids, take a deep breath, count to 10, take a time out. Remind yourself that they are still learning. Remind yourself that the end goal is learning, not just being mad. So I'm going to end with this story. I had the roughest bedtime the other night that I have ever had. I would love to say that bedtime is just smooth sailing. You know, I've been doing this for years. Like, it's just a piece of cake. But there are definitely days where it is still very hard. Not because my kids are terrible, but they're kids, you know. And There are days where no one wants to go to bed, or this person is having this problem, this person's having this problem. And so the other week, I just lost my ish. I got so frustrated. I said so many things that I really wish I hadn't said. And I completely just lost my temper. And I hate that. I still feel so much guilt about it. You know, the kids falling asleep, feeling sad. You know, they were sad and bummed because they weren't listening, and then I lost my temper, and I was just like over it. So I went back upstairs to apologize, and they were all asleep. So I was like kissing them in their sleep like a weirdo. And I just had this realization of like parenting is so much more about learning than being an expert. I think when you go into it, you think, okay, I got this, you know, I got through the first stage, I got through the pregnancy, I got through the first year, I got through all these things, so, you know, we're doing good. And then you'll just hit these moments where you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, that's my story. I gotta keep it real and authentic. I never want you to come on my channel or my Instagram or any of my social platforms and look at me and be like, she's perfect, she has it together, because I so don't. And there are definitely days where I'm like, I just don't even know how to parent today. Okay, you guys, that is all for today's video. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question. I couldn't get to all of them, but I got to as many as I could. I really enjoy doing these sit-down videos, and I really love hearing from you guys and being able to answer questions that you have. So let me know in the comments below if there are any other videos you would like me to do in this kind of style, and I would love to do that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you on the next video. Bye!